This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it.
Wow. We just got finished.
That sounds kind of weird. Kind of sounds weird. Sound like 99 New Lions.
But the Big Ten's a bad conference. That's a joke. If this gets clipped, that's a joke.
Oh, no.
We're definitely clipping that one now.
He was freezing up a little bit, Biggs. I'm a little worried.
See, that's what that was.
Big TV star Cappy.
Oh,
He didn't. I've been on once in October.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 305. Good evening, Vigs. How you ready for some high school hockey besides college hockey here?
Yeah, I'm headed down to Grand Casino tomorrow for some of the AA games. I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's not quite like first round of the NCAA tournament, but it's pretty high-paced hockey, and it'll be fun to see the building rocking for the high schoolers.
Well, our guest tonight, he's been on a couple times, but Vigs, we always had him on for Michigan, not Michigan State.
He's branching out, though. So,
Well,
have
wait.
him on.
He got a real job after college. That's essentially what happened. Well, let's bring him in. Connor Earegood let me press the right button. Here we go. Of the Detroit News, not the Michigan Daily anymore, but it's a big boy job now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm watching the clip in the intro. I look like a child. It's been a while.
He's all grown up now, folks.
He's all
a little
grown
bit.
up.
Not as mature.
So we talked a little bit before, you know, you were at the Michigan Daily, did your schooling, you're a big Michigan fan, and now you've moved over to covering the biggest Michigan rivalry in Michigan State. But it's turned out to be pretty cool for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a great beat. It's Big Ten sports, right? And you know, grew up about an hour from each school. Had friends that went to each school and tons of connections. So wasn't too different from covering Michigan, other than I don't have to pay tuition. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
it's a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Vigs, this past weekend, Minnesota at Michigan, 4-2 win and a 4-2 loss. I would say, based on this season so far, that's a pretty good result for Minnesota at Yost. And Bob keeps his record really good at Yost.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the Gophers, when they go to Yost, good things happen. I think one thing when they play the Wolverines is they're not going to sit back. They want to trade chances. They want to get going. They've got high talent players too, and it's a game of mistakes. And you look at Friday's game, Michigan made some mistakes. Gophers got in transition. They've got some guys who can really score in transition, like Brody Zemer and LJ Mooney. And, they finished their chances and they came out on top. Saturday, Gophers didn't quite get the chances that they got on Friday night. Had a big power play that they could have scored on late in the game that would have helped. But Michigan's talent came out on top.
And on the flip side, Connor, Michigan State, OSU took 4 out of 6 points. We had that long shootout on Saturday, but Friday night it was 5-1 Ohio State, kind of showing that all these bottom teams could be a legitimate threat in the playoffs coming up.
Yeah, I asked Adam Nightingale about that earlier this week, how sort of playing a tough conference prepares you in the postseason. I think this might be the best Big Ten I've seen. Now, granted, I'm a youngin. I don't remember the early, 20 teens teams, or I guess it wasn't even early, mid 20 teens, but it seems like it's stronger than ever. Tons of good teams, but that wasn't a result Michigan State wanted to see. If you remember last year, obviously winning the series against the Gophers at Munn set them up to win an outright Big Ten title, and I ended up tying for the thing at the end of the year because they kept splitting series and not playing their best hockey at the end of the year. For a Michigan State team that sort of the answers lie in the postseason and what they can do in an NCAA tournament, it wasn't a very promising result. The one caveat to that was they got better Friday to Saturday and sort of closed it out in an improved fashion. Scored on the power play, getting out in transition a little bit better. So there's signs that they're in the right direction, and they certainly have a little bit of leash to play with, but still not the greatest result for them at all.
And Viggs, Bob was even saying at the availability yesterday that he thought Minnesota played better against Michigan, and kind of similar to how, Michigan State played better in that second game, even though Minnesota didn't win that second game.
Well, it just shows you the coaches are always looking at the process, not so much the results. Bob's trying to get this team ready for the postseason, and he's trying to get them ready for a run in the Big Ten tournament and hopefully the NCAA tournament. But you've got to be playing good hockey at this time of year. And I think one thing about Minnesota that I've noticed as the season's kind of gone on here, they've embraced a little bit more of a defensive structure. And I think, especially in the second game against Michigan last week, they did a pretty good job of keeping the Wolverines to the perimeter, and they're getting good goaltending from Luka and net. And I think that's a difference maker for them in these big matchups. They've got some defensive structure and a great goaltender that's going to allow them to maybe let their top line and power play be dangerous as the season winds down.
So I've heard that the entire Michigan State staff is coming this weekend, athletic director and all here to Mariucci. They want to sell it. They want to get a trophy. I'm curious, Connor, what is the tiebreaker with Michigan? Who wins that? Because, Michigan State could easily get 2 and tie. Do you know what the tiebreaker is between those schools?
I want to say it's regulation wins, and I think Michigan has it. I'm thinking conference play. So it could be a tied title, and Michigan State has to play on the Wednesday for the Big Ten tournament, which is new, and I actually like it a lot. So it's it speeds things up. But I think that's a game if you're Michigan State and you're sort of getting banged up here throughout the end of the season. No serious injuries, but you don't want to get one right in an extra game. I think the pitch count gives you an extra incentive to go get 3 if they can. But again, playing on the road at Minnesota, it's not a venue that's treated Michigan State well over the years. Even some of the better teams in these recent years, right? I think of Nightingale's first team needed points in Minnesota to make the NCAA tournament, and I ended up not getting those, and that was a big deal that first year. So it's a tough place to play. It's going to be a tough, contested series. Michigan State's got a lot to prove.
Well, the funny thing is, Viggs, I think it was just a couple weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago, we were talking on the podcast how, Michigan State, they might not have a lot to play for at the end of the season. They kind of got their NCAA wrapped up, but it turns out these past 2 weekends, Minnesota's been very involved in who's going to win the league.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota's playing well right now, and they're not an easy team to play against, and they're competing really hard. You see the physical play, you see the block shots. Minnesota's invested in not giving away points to anybody. The players were talking about that last weekend about Michigan is like, we don't want to give them a chance at the title. We want to be spoilers a little bit. And I don't think Minnesota has often played the spoiler, and they'll have another chance to do that again this weekend against Sparty.
Yeah, Bob was kind of talking about that. He's like, we kind of slowed down, Michigan winning the title, and now they're hoping to slow down and maybe even prevent Michigan State. But then Michigan gets their first and only title. They've never won the regular season before,
which is pretty crazy with all the talent
that
Michigan's had over the years. But again, I often look at the discipline of the Wolverines and how it disappears at times. Draper, clear cross-check to Javon Moore in the dying minutes of the game, put the Gophers on a 5-minute power play. You just can't do that, really. And they got away with it. The Gophers had some really good looks on that 5-minute power play. It's one of the best units in the country. Zemer had some good looks. Mooney had some good looks. They just couldn't get it to go. But that's just a symptom of what I've seen from Michigan over the years, where they just make a critical discipline mistake at a time you can't make it, and they let other teams into it. And, so far this season, they've been able to outscore their mistakes, and that's been the difference.
What has been the difference for Michigan State? Obviously, Trey Augustine could be a pretty big difference, Connor. Obviously, new coach the last couple of years, better recruiting. I mean, there was a time where Michigan State had lost 14 straight games against Minnesota. And, they came into the league kind of in a downtime, and they were kind of at the bottom of the league for many years. But is there anything else there besides, just kind of new look, new coach, new everything?
Yeah, I think they have a good crop of upperclassmen. I think that's a big key. I think Matt Basile is a guy who, isn't this highly touted recruit and is rock solid on that blue line. Colin Ralph obviously helps. I think he's going to be one heck of a pro. I look at the goaltending, obviously, with Trey. He's been exceptional with the team playing a little bit looser in front of him than maybe a year ago. And I think he's had to make some pretty key stops to sort of stay in games. I would have liked a few more on the Friday night against Ohio State. And I think that's a game that, when people throw Hobie around, right, it's hard for a goalie to win. I think that's a result that's going to probably hold him back from that. But he's still one of the top goalies in easily the conference, probably the country, just for impact to a team, right? And he sort of got this thing started for Michigan State. But I also look at the forward core at a guy like Porter Martone, who came in and didn't have any sort of the freshman struggles. I think he's still tied with Charlie Stramel for the team leading points, or maybe he's a point ahead. And obviously Charlie Stramel's, continued growth year over year. He's found a lot more command in his offense. Last year, he sort of was Robin to Isaac Howard's Batman. This year, he's sort of his own hero. I'm not a huge comic book nerd, so I can't think of a great analogy for it. But he's coming out of his shell, and he's playing pretty well. That some of the Wild fans probably excited to see. Whether that's as a trade asset or not, I've heard so many people ask about that and if he's legit. But I think he's having a great season, and the finishing has improved so much. I think that's a big, big sign for Michigan State.
Well, Vinks, we talked about it last week about Stramel that, it just wasn't a good fit at Wisconsin. The style of play, and plus, he needed to put a commitment to it as well. Ben Holden last week is saying, he's built like an Adonis now, and he wasn't before.
No, I think we remember having Tom Molesky on, when Stramel first got there, and when he was at the program, people called Stramel the big unit. He was, coming down the tracks, going to the net, and when he got to Wisconsin, he was not that same kind of player. Like, he couldn't play that game. He wasn't physically mature enough. He hadn't put in the time, and it seemed like, when things weren't going well for him, he got away from that. And resetting at Michigan State really seemed to change his trajectory, and he's been really good. And I think the key for Michigan State is they've got a lot of upperclassmen that's allowed some of their younger players to just step into roles and not have to be an everything player. Like, they can just come in and find where they can contribute. And that's probably the issue with Minnesota this year, is we haven't had enough depth up top to create a safe space for those young players to develop. You look at the game on Saturday, the Gophers make a couple mistakes with young players getting themselves out of position, and they just hand goals to Michigan. And you can't do that this time of year. You got to make the other team earn goals. And that's been an issue all year for Minnesota.
Connor, I do think that, we had a little back and forth with Cappy, and he was saying, this could be an interesting Wednesday playoff. Some of these teams on the bottom, Minnesota, Notre Dame, Ohio State, have shown they can win against the top teams. But he also kind of said to us, maybe it put some fear in these top teams as well, saying, hey, guys, we cannot look past a Notre Dame, a Minnesota, an Ohio State, because, it could mess up a seeding for the NCAA tournament for them.
Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. And I think, too, one of the things with the Big Ten is the way the tournament started so slow, right? Like, you go, one team's going to have a week off. There's the quarterfinal. That might go 3 games in a weekend, but I usually saw that with the 4-5, right? Used to play. I'm not good with numbers today. That's gotten a lot worse since I graduated. But no, it's the slower pace. I think this sped up process is going to be a lot better just to prepare teams for the postseason. I think that's what you want out of a conference tournament, is sort of a dry run. Yes, it's going to determine an auto bid. Yes, that's in the cards for some of the conferences, sort of lower teams in the standings that maybe aren't so high in the NPI, but getting the top teams and even the team that might break through ready for the postseason should be the ultimate goal.
I do think, though, looking at like the playoffstatus.com stuff, where they're looking at, what seeds teams can get, Michigan locked into a top 4 seed. they're going to be a 1 seed somehow. Michigan State, it's less than 1% that they're a 2 seed. So they're almost locked in as a 1. And we've seen this with Minnesota over the years. When they already have that seed pretty much locked in, they're playing for a conference title. But, that's not the goal in any of these players' minds. They want an NCAA title at the end of the year. So, that's where the focus is. And as Connor is saying, this Big Ten is as deep as it's ever been. I think there's 6 teams that are really good. I think Notre Dame can beat you with some of their talent. But the top 6 teams are all tough teams this year.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. And, just last weekend, you had the CCHA Vigs where, was it 4 or 5 teams could have won the league on the last night?
Yeah, it's crazy. And they're all on the bubble.
They are all
only probably one of them is going to make it, which is just crazy.
That's the best time of year, though. That's when you get all that chaos. And, let me see, looking at the NPI just a little bit here. Yeah, you've got, Wisconsin's at 12. They could be close. Boston College. Augustana is the top CCHA team, but, Minnesota State won the league. They're right at 16, Vig, so you might be right. Or any one of those teams could upset and knock somebody else out. It does make a fun time of the year, Connor. It really does.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Okay. We need to get to your poll this week first, Vigs. But before that, we need to talk about Cascade CBX and their great offer right now, Vigs.
Yeah, that's right. They're such big believers in their product and they're in startup mode right now. You can visit cascadecbxsport.com/team. And for just $5, you can get a 300 milligram sample jar of this stuff that retails for $25. Shipping's included. It's free. So for $5, you can try it out. They're in startup mode. They're trying to build some believers. And this stuff, it relieves pain, relieves inflammation, relieves stress. And if you're looking to try something to soothe those aches and pains, like I've had a long hockey coaching season, I've got a bunch of them right now. This stuff works great. So check it out, cascadecbxsport.com/team, and see what all the fuss is about. Trust the Shield, stay on the field.
Of course, we thank Cascade CBX Sport for sponsoring the GPL podcast. All right, Vigs, your top 20 this week. You put North Dakota up at the top because, they won the title on the road against Western Michigan and then, kind of rested a few guys the next night. But the thing is, the NPI doesn't care of who you rest. So you kind of rank them how you feel the teams are going right now.
Yeah, a little bit. The USCHO poll had Michigan as the number 1 team this week, which surprised me because they split with the 37th team in MPI. That would be the Gophers, 37th in MPI. I can't see how you can get a split and then you rank them number 1. So I had to go with the Penrose Cup champs. North Dakota is my number 1. Michigan State, their season has been great other than, losing a couple points to Ohio State. So I've got them ahead right now. And then I've got Western and Denver. That NCH seed, they're just creeping to the top of my poll after, the stranglehold of the Big Ten earlier in the year.
That's a lot of Western teams, though, Connor. North Dakota, Michigan, Michigan State, Western, Denver. Penn State's kind of a Western team, but
spiritually,
it's just it's going to be interesting, guys, to see what happens this year in the NCAA tournament with such a dry East Coast bias. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've been high on Providence all year. Probably kind of an outlier among a lot of people. I believe a lot what Nate Lehman does over there. He has some good major junior kids that came into the bolster that roster. Rampacknold, Quinnipiac again, just getting it done out there. Maybe a challenge from some other teams in the ECAC, but they found a way, and they're going to be back in it for sure.
And here's the NPI just showing you numbers a little differently, and that's where it kind of shows. So we know North Dakota would probably be higher if they wouldn't have lost that game to Minnesota. I think I calculated they would be like a full point higher, so they might even be number 1 right now. It's
amazing when you lose bad teams in the MPI and the pairwise type stuff. It really hurts you.
The thing I'll point out too, like you look how many Western teams are there for the regional sites. It's going to be really interesting. Like that almost gives you something more to play for these next couple of weeks, more so than conference title. I mean, conference titles matter. I shouldn't say that the site's going to matter more than that. But if you're playing in a semifinal, right, or you got a final series, that's a big deal. If you got to go out to Colorado, or is it Sioux Falls this year as well?
Sioux Falls and Loveland out here. Yep.
Yeah, like if you play in some North Dakota fans, I mean, you'll play them anywhere, but the concentration might be higher in some of these spots. So, it'll be interesting.
And Denver's going to be a number 2 or number 3 there, Viggs. They're going to be at Loveland, and that's going to be a tough spot for someone like a Michigan State or Michigan or Western to go to.
Or maybe Quinnipiac or Providence being the higher seed and having to play a Denver is going to be interesting. What if Cornell were to be in that situation and they've got to play Denver and Loveland?
Yeah, they don't have the whiny coach. Is their new coach a whiny guy like the previous one?
Is all about that.
The fan
up. So Big Red will have Big Red faces when they see where they land in the tournament. But, it's the format we have set up. We've talked about it for years, how we'd like to see campus sites to the high seed for the first round and same for the second round. I think it makes for better atmosphere, better hockey. And we've heard lots of coaches say they'd rather play in a packed building and have an exciting atmosphere than have to create their own energy. And I thought it was interesting. Adam Odon from College Hockey News this week was talking about how that home road weighting should just be tossed out because over the conference season, it hasn't really been a big factor if you're playing at home or on the road, and yet it hurts you, when you win at home or when you
lose at home or win.
Lose at home, win on the road. It's factoring in, and it shouldn't. And hey, why not take that same philosophy to the NCAA tournament?
Well, we know how Adam is.
I know. I just had to bring it up.
But some of it's legit though, because if you play an unbalanced schedule, you're not like in Big Ten. It's balanced. A lot of other leagues are not balanced. So,
yeah, like NCHC has the pods, where you play your rivals and you miss out on some other teams. So it could impact you.
Gentlemen, it looks like we have a new Division I hockey team, Maryville. I believe they hosted the regional for the big regional was Michigan and Michigan State and North Dakota. Weren't you all there? Back in Maryville, was it the Maryville Arena in St. Louis that all those big, huge schools went to just a few years ago?
Yeah, that's why it was such a success as a regional, because you took like the 4 biggest schools and you put them in the smallest rink. So,
did you go to that one, Connor?
No, so I was sort of lame duck senior, just writing columns. So I didn't travel down. I didn't make it to the Frozen Four that year either. That was in Minnesota that I should have gone to. I know, but we
had a good time.
There was a Puerto Rico spring break trip that was
wow.
I couldn't move for 3 days when I got back because my sunburn on my back. But
he's
it was still a great trip.
He's a smart college boy back then, wasn't he? Well, wait a minute. Viggs was only at half the Frozen Four in Minnesota that year because he went to Cabo.
Yep, had to go to Cabo. So I hear you, Connor. Sometimes you get the end of this winter, and if your team's not there, or you have the opportunity to get somewhere warm, you want to take it. But I think Maryville's like the perfect program to go D1. I think we've talked about this a couple times where like in Illinois and Oregon, those schools are going to have a hard time sponsoring hockey because they have such big athletic departments already. They've got Title IX concerns. They've got revenue share. I think we were looking at what are some smaller schools that don't have those concerns that could add hockey. And Maryville's that perfect fit for that. Their athletic department doesn't have all those big concerns, and they can really focus on a successful hockey program launch.
Does it save the Alaska schools and Lindenwood and Long Island who don't have a conference? Now we've got 6 independent teams, Viggs. They could form a conference.
There's a lot of travel there, but it makes a ton of sense for them to bond together and get through it. So we can see and we can hope, and I think it'd be great for all those schools. There's plenty of college hockey players out there. The league has never been deeper, and with all the college players coming from Canada and the CHL now, you can put together a pretty competitive roster very quickly.
Connor, any thoughts on Maryville?
I'm with it. I think expansion of the game is good. Like part of I don't know. You get into these conversations of like, do you dilute the player pool? Is a program going to be sustainable? I think those are always something to consider. But with the CHL decision and how many players are available and players who want to come play college hockey, right? I think we've seen that increase, and I think if it helps some of the independents, whether or not they would want to form a conference, or it's just someone new to play. I think the Alaska teams play each other like 6 games in a row. That's
yeah, I
crazy.
mentioned that on. I got the Alaska blog, the Alaska Fairbanks blog guys going after me. He goes, "There's a 100-year-old program." I'm like, I understand the history, but it's not a winning formula to play your rival without a conference 6 times in a row to end the season.
It's just not healthy. Like, it's sad.
And they're like, "Well, look at your rankings in the MPI. You should be worried about your own team." I'm like, "No, I'm worried about college hockey." and Vigs, sure, I'm probably stirring the pot a little bit, but I personally think that's just not a good way to go. They essentially caused the WCHA to form a new league to get rid of those schools.
It's challenging to figure out the travel. And, the NCAA tries to give the extra game if you can go play at the Alaska schools. But I think at the end of the year, it makes it really hard for them to figure out their schedule.
Yes. Well, they're doing their own little regular season tournament.
Yeah, which has been a good solution for them, because there's that one year that, one of the Alaska schools was on the bubble for the NCAA tournament, and every game they played just kind of hurt their strength of schedule and their RPI. And it just was a tough situation for them. So getting into a league and having an auto bid would probably be great for them, and interesting for college hockey to then have another league with an auto bid, and the bubble would get even smaller.
Or did they bring back maybe the Great Western Conference?
Maybe there's another league shakeup coming. We always thought that when Josh Fenton left the NCHC, was there another league that was maybe bubbling up somewhere? Yeah.
There's enough teams. I mean, because some of these conferences have quite a few teams. Even the NCHC, what they at 10 now or 11? I mean, it's gotten to the point where they, like Arizona State, our former recruit Cruz Lucius, no longer playing. His college career is done.
Pretty interesting that 2 of the top scorers in the NCHC were from ASU, and they weren't up for Player of the Year, which I thought was interesting. Not a surprise, but just interesting.
So yeah, I stirred the pot a little bit this week. Got a little bit people, Alaska's 100 years old. I'm like, yeah, but Anchorage is not doing good. We've seen it for years. Hopefully Maryville comes in a couple seasons and they can create a conference, because that or maybe it does cause a shakeup, Vigs, because I have a feeling that it's just not sustainable, is it, for Alaska schools, or at least one of them, or maybe they combined? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not the expert like the Alaska hockey bloggers might be on this topic, but I know it's good for college hockey to have more teams, and there's certainly enough players out there to populate rosters, as we've seen.
How have you felt about the Canadian juniors coming in this year, Connor? It's been a pretty good boon for Michigan State.
Yeah, Martone's been a real good player for them, and fun to cover as well. You get a lot of cool personalities and different folks that come in, but it hasn't worked for everyone. Caden Lindstrom's proof of that, right? Has not scored at the rate that I think people expected. Granted, scoring wasn't always his knack, and it's not his role necessarily as a player, but it's been frustrating for him at times this year, and he's shown it with the penalties he's taken. He sat a game because of the misconducts he'd accumulated. Like, you don't see that from a first-round pick in college hockey as much, but
no.
I do think it's good for the sport. It gets rid of some of the decision-making, right, to say, I'm going to go play in Canadian juniors, or I'm going to play college hockey. It gets rid of the rigidity of those decisions and opens up some decisions for players that they can do what's right for them on a year-to-year basis. We already do that in college sports, right, with the transfer portal and all these different decisions players can make. It's really not that different from Canadian major juniors, but I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing.
Well, Vigs, we've talked about it. It's probably a lot better than the Canadian juniors. I mean, especially if you go to one of the blue chip schools like a Michigan State, Minnesota, North Dakota, the food, the airline travel, the training. We kind of talked earlier this season that like a lot of these guys, McKenna and Martone and stuff like that, they're going to go talk to their friends back in Canada and say, hey, this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players are impressed with what college hockey has to offer. What I'm interested to see is how long these players stick around. Does Martone stick around for 2 or 3 years, or is he a one and done? Lindstrom obviously limits his options by the year he's had, but is he a 2 and done type player? And I think that's one of the things that we're waiting to see in college hockey is how much these guys trust college hockey to be part of their path rather than just a stepping stone to a pro career.
Yeah. Only time will tell. Time will tell. Oh, before we get to this weekend games with Michigan State, Vigs, Cub Foods. What have you been at Cub Foods for recently? Getting a lot of pizza ingredients?
Well, actually, this week I made like a beef stroganoff.
Oh,
so I was missing a few key ingredients for my stroganoff. So I had to go get some onions down there. I had to go get some creme fraiche. I had to get some egg noodles. And I went down to Cub, and sure enough, everything was in stock. It was quick. I had a good shopping experience. There were a couple other seasonal items I was picking up as well. So just a great trip down to my quarry Cub. And, they're one of us. They support Gopher Sports. They support our podcast. They support a lot of the Pull Tab Sports podcasts. So why don't you support them? Because they're local. You can shop happy. Shop Cub.
Of course, we thank Cub for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. Michigan State coming to town. Unfortunately, you're not going to come this week, Connor. You got other things to do, so we're going to miss you here. But hopefully, I'm thinking if Minnesota happens to win on a Wednesday coming up, I might travel to Michigan State. I might just hit the road, Vigs, and travel.
Have you been to Mount Arena before, Jupe?
I have not.
Ooh.
It's been quite the place lately, hasn't it been, Connor?
Oh, yeah. The renovations were they were pricey, certainly out of my budget, but it's a beautiful rink. It's well taken care of, and there's so much history, right? You look at some of the banners that hang there, the guys who've played there that have fond memories and frequently talk about them. It's a great barn for college hockey. I don't think there's a bad venue in the Big Ten. Obviously it depends on who's good. And what fans are rocking, but it's been a very, very tough ticket to come by for East Lansing folks. I know some students that were scratching and clawing to get some tickets from friends and line things up. But even during spring break, I mean, there were students that stayed. I wouldn't have been one of them. In those shoes, I'd have been going to Puerto Rico, but they were diehards for it, and I know the players appreciated that too. So. It's rocking. You should definitely come out.
I'm trying to think, Vigs. Have we heard about OSU's arena yet? When is that being decided? Isn't that coming up?
I feel like there's a board of trustees meeting for Ohio State this week where there might be some facility news that was hinted at by Cappy when he was on our show a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a little busy this week, so I haven't checked on the status of those documents yet. But, Ohio State's probably got the worst venue in the Big Ten right now.
Especially for the women. Yeah. That is just ugh.
The women, it's
a crime.
Hard to believe how successful they've been and the rink that they play in for their home games and the rink they practice in. It's just, I can't believe it. Almost like I can't believe Michigan doesn't have a women's team somewhere in that big state of theirs. But anyway, it should be some news, hopefully, out of Ohio State soon, what they're going to do.
And that could be big, Connor. I mean, yeah. We don't like Michigan. We don't like Ohio State. We don't like Michigan. We don't like any of these teams, but we still want the conferences to be successful. And Ohio State getting a Notre Dame or Penn State size arena, that could be really big for that program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've seen the talent too that they've gotten. Carabella's a good player. He would impress the heck out of me over the weekend. And I think, you look at the venue, there's energy there, right? I remember when Michigan played there, Nick Blankenberg scored a goal and celebrated. There's a dog on the glass. It was awesome. He like went to go pet the dog. It was sweet. You know, you don't get that in a lot of venues. And it's a great basketball venue as well. I've had the fortune to see both sports played there, and it's just too big for college hockey. That's the problem. The crowd is there, the amenities are there in theory, but it's just the space, right? And the ice is usually bad because of that space. But obviously their women's program has been a powerhouse in recent years. It's a shame where they play. I think if you can get a new facility and you can put both teams, I think that's the blueprint for a team like Michigan, right? You know, and if Michigan State, I don't think there's a desire to add another team right now with some of the athletic department shakeups at MSU, but the path forward would probably require new facilities just for practice time. You know, the juggling is already crazy with youth sports that are played at both venues. So that's the path forward for sure. And it'll be something to watch at U of M if there aren't decisions as well with Yost, even if it's historic. You know, there's going to have to be some tough conversations had.
I think we've talked about that a little bit, haven't we, Biggs? They're looking at like a Mariucci type sized arena.
It could be. It's hard to know what they're going to decide. You know, they've had plans for both ways. You know, Steve Rolick obviously would like something that would be big enough for both programs to play in, but small enough for great atmosphere. But it's hard to know. Connor, how closely have you followed the finances these days in Michigan State and the Big Ten? I know Scott Dockerman published a little article this week in The Athletic where he was looking at finances and the athletic budgets. You know, he also called out that Minnesota's hockey program made more money than a lot of basketball programs in the Big Ten did this last year. Have you seen how the books are looking at Michigan State and how they're handling everything?
Not good, but no one's looking great with revenue share. I want to say Michigan State is 196 million. There might be more buyouts added to that in the whole. And granted that there's been year-over-year deficits just from a lack of funding and poor football, right? That's what's going to dictate what your books look like in a lot of ways. And Michigan State has had some pretty down years since 21. So there's a lot of changes happened because of that. That's the reason Jay Batt's the new athletic director. It's the reason they're adding a third-party entity to house some of the corporate side sports. You know, you think ticketing, you think of information, you think of NIL and the ways they can move there. They're sort of cutting that off of the athletic department to make this third-party entity it's nonprofit, but then there's a for-profit arm as well. There's a lot of legalese I've had to learn. I never would have thought. But no, it's been a very complicated, complex thing. But as I said, I don't know if women's hockey's been discussed other than just like it would be nice. The sport at Michigan State, especially in the women's side to watch, is women's basketball. That is a sport that the university has invested in some ways and has the right coach in place. That's one that could be really interesting. They just won at Minnesota, I think, last week and played one heck of a game there. So, you know, that's a program I think to watch it at Michigan State, that there could be moves there and some further investment.
Well, we even talked about it with Ben Holden last week. Who scored the goal-winning goal for the women? Megan Keller out of Michigan. But she couldn't play at any Michigan school.
Boston College. It's sad.
I mean, well, all we can do is hope. I mean, it would be cool to say. I mean, you think, what are you, 7 Division I schools, and none of them play that. It's just, and there's a lot of women probably playing hockey, youth hockey in Michigan, isn't there? I mean,
it's a AAA factory. You look at the players who've played AAA in the Detroit metro area, it's insane. And you know, if it's not U of M or MSU, someone like if you're in first in the state of Michigan and you keep kids local, powerhouse. Like the talent you can recruit and the kids who want to stay local. You know, that's the one thing that all these stories about the state of Michigan and this lack of a program. Everyone says they want to stay local. They want mom and dad and their grandparents and everyone to come to their games. If you're, you know, probably not Lake State, but Western
makes so much sense. You know,
they're
getting that new facility. You know, there's a way to build in some extra space so women's program could go in there and succeed. You know, Western doesn't have the big football budget and rev share that other schools have to deal with. You know, it's a little bit smaller program. So it would make a lot of sense to me, but
Chicago,
I don't write the checks.
Chicago's supposed to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this weekend, Vigs, we heard from Leo Gruba saying, hey, we're in this together. Burn the boats is what he said, which is kind of, old time reference of, basically, let's see, here we go, is a powerful historical rooted metaphor for total commitment, urging individuals to eliminate all escape routes and backup plans to ensure success. I was kind of surprised that he kind of jumped out and went with this during the availability yesterday.
Yeah, Leo's been putting himself out there with the media this year. It's something he's trying to build on, just like his hockey game. He's trying to, build out his media relations duties as well. And I had a little look on my face when he said, the goal is to give the seniors a national championship on their way out. But this team has a lot of quality wins. They've beaten North Dakota, they've beaten Denver, they've beat Michigan. Maybe they'll beat Michigan State this weekend. We'll see. But they've been playing the number one strength of schedule in the country. Why not?
Here's that clip I'll play here.
You had mentioned that you want to win that national championship. Is that something you guys are discussing? Is it something that's still the cherry on top, I guess?
100%. We are you might call us a delusional confidence, but we are very confident in our group. We know we played great hockey in the last month, and no one's packing their bags. No one's got spring break clothes in the closet yet. We're going to be here for a few more weeks. We'll win 2 this weekend. That's our plan, and then 6 straight. And we actually, if you got the video, this is our motto here, going up the stretch. Burn the boats. That's our plan. So we're not looking back, and an exciting time of year to play hockey.
I was just surprised by that, Vigs. It was kind of out of nowhere, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be something for fans to watch here as the stretch goes on. They are playing some of their better hockey at this point of the year. We've seen John Whipple emerge as a really strong player. He played really well against the Wolverines, physical, blocking shots, breaking pucks out. I think we saw Rombach play a better weekend against Michigan than he's played. He got, over 10 minutes of ice time, I think, both nights. So there's some signs of encouragement. And as long as that top line is healthy, they are probably one of the best lines in college hockey. Lamb, Mooney, and Zemer are dangerous every time they're on the ice. They just need a little bit of help, and we're starting to see that a little bit from Javon Moore, from Beckett Hendrickson. They just need a little bit more help.
And on the Michigan State side, Connor, they hold their own fate in their own hands to win out the title by themselves over Michigan.
Yeah. And that's the motivator, right?
Yeah.
They only need 3 points to not only win it, but kick their chief rival out of the picture as well. I almost think that's more motivating than a third. Like, you've won 2 Big Ten championships. I was laughing at the GLI because last year when they won it, they hadn't before, and the GLI is not the tournament it used to be. You would have thought it was a Super Bowl. Like Howard skated with that thing. It was awesome to see just the euphoria. And then they win it this year, and it's like, yeah. Like, no extra sauce to it. I mean, they were happy to win a game, and that was a good Tech team they beat. But, and then I think with the Big Ten regular season title, there's more of a grind to it, right? You play a 30-game season and you come out on the other end with some hardware. It's a big deal. And this senior class, right, could walk away with 3 of them when they committed to a program they didn't even know what things would look like with the new coaching staff. It was sort of sight unseen in a way. But, I think the luster is beating your chief rival out from being in that picture, as well as what it could do for the NPI, for seeding, where you're going to play, those sorts of things. I think those are very real conversations that are going on.
Really, I think this year, Vigs, that number 1 seed is really important since the team you're going to play just played a couple nights before that. So it's not like that full week off type of thing anymore. It could be a nice advantage for either Michigan State or Michigan.
Yeah, it could be a nice advantage. It's only 1 game to get up for as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that rest playing against a tired team could help. I just, look at Michigan State. They haven't been to a Frozen Four in, I think, 20 years. So I think while, a third regular season championship in a row, maybe a third conference tournament in a row are there, I'm sure a Frozen Four trip and making a run at the Natty is probably top of mind. So it's a real challenge for Nightingale and his staff to kind of keep these guys focused on finishing out the season, especially if they win on Friday, or Thursday, maybe not much to play for on Friday. So we'll see how the weekend goes from that perspective.
What does Michigan State need to do to win this weekend, Connor?
Forecheck harder. I think crisper as well. Connectivity was a big issue the first night against Ohio State, and even the second. I think the second pairing of Patrick Geary and Max Sturbach needs to play a lot better. Sturbach had a pretty rough weekend. Lots of turnovers, lots of poor passes, and sort of not being in the right position, wrong lanes, the whole nine. Like, burn the tape was what we were kind of agreeing on in the press box for him over the weekend. But I think you want to see a better showing from those two. And I think you want to see things a little bit harder around the net in front of Trey. I thought Ohio State got a little bit, a little bit more space than they probably should have, especially on Saturday for a team that you just, gave up 5 goals the night before for one of the best goalies in college hockey. They were not all his fault. And I think you look at some of the plays that Ohio State was able to generate, Carabella especially, he's going to be one heck of a player as a senior. I'm really, really high on him. I think that's where you want to see growth is sort of just playing in control, playing with the process. I think that's Michigan State's goal going into this. And coming away with a ring. Like, we as much as it's probably not the chief goal, it's still something they want to walk away with.
Well, Steve's reminding us here that, Michigan State, Minnesota, the only teams that have won multiple regular season titles.
Minnesota first 4, right?
Yeah, I think they've won 7 now. So I think they won 6 out of 8 or 9 or something. It was the first 4 in a row. I know
a lot.
It is a lot.
It's pretty funny. We were asking, Bob about, regular season titles. He's like, yeah, nobody cares about that one. Everyone wants to win the big.
Or they don't remember. They don't remember.
Yeah, because he's like, who won 5 or 6 years ago? And Randy is like, well, probably you. But he's like, yeah, and I'm still on the hot seat for all the fans here that we got to win one. So, that's what the programs care about. When you haven't won a regular season title and you win one or you win 2, okay, now what's next? Like, we want to go to Vegas and see a Frozen Four. That's where the fan base kind of tends to go around here, is that winning the regular season is great and all, but what can you do in the postseason that really matters? So I think it's a big challenge for both teams this weekend. Minnesota's got to keep playing the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks in competitive, strong hockey games. This is a team right now that has to play a disciplined style. They're not going to go out and score 5 or 6 against good hockey teams. They just don't have the firepower in their lineup. So they have to look to win a 3-2 game or a 4-2 game with an empty netter or something like that. And so they've got to keep their focus on that, and they've got to stay out of the box. Michigan's power play looked really good again against the Gophers, and the Gophers, we've talked about this a lot, are last in the country with their PK, and Michigan State maybe not quite as high powered as Michigan's power play, but still pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's we're just full of stats the last couple of years here at Connor. We had that goalless streak on the shootout, which got to 28 misses in a row. At one point, just a couple of weeks ago, number 1 in the power play, number 63 in the penalty kill. We just love the goofy stats here in Minnesota. We just embrace it. Oh, there goes my camera. It's going goofy on me again, but we embrace this goofiness here.
Yeah, it's a goofy season too. I feel like in some ways, like when I look at how Minnesota started the season, some of the wins, probably didn't expect January to go the way it did. But I think no one in that Michigan State dressing room is taking this trip lightly. They know what Minnesota is capable of. I'm a big Zemer fan. I think he's going to be a really, really good pro. Buffalo got one hell of a steal. I like this team. Whipple, obviously, Wings pick. Was familiar with him from Hockey News days just a little bit, but it's a good group. And Luca DePasquale, like, I don't think people realize how important he was for Trey Augustine. That's his guy. Like, they are thick as thieves. You don't see many players come back where they transferred from and get a cheer. If that says anything about him and his character and how guys, appreciated him, it'll be a fun series, especially seeing those two goalies go at it. Should be a good time. Wish I could make the trip.
Oh yeah, we wish you were here too.
But, yeah.
Hey, you're at the Detroit News. I mean,
yeah,
you got a lot of. You're not just covering hockey. There's
the
pretty big basketball teams there.
Yeah, Tom Izzo, quite the guy.
Yeah.
I am picking a split this weekend. So Michigan State's gonna get their title, but I think I think it's gonna have to wait until Saturday night. So Michigan State's gonna sweat it out. Minnesota's gonna win Friday. Michigan State will win Saturday. Oh yeah, sorry, Friday, Thursday, Friday. And Michigan State's gonna sweat it out a little bit. Make them nervous. Boy, if that second game were to get to overtime and Michigan State needs that point, or they lose it based off of that, that would be interesting. But that's my pick. Connor, what are your picks for points this weekend?
I also have a split. I think it's 3-3. Part of me thinks two get to OT and it's a split that way, OT or shootout. But I think it'll be in regulation each night. I think Michigan State probably wins the first one. You're fired up, juiced up. It's a Thursday. It's been spring break all week for Michigan State, so they haven't had class or anything like that. They've been thinking about this and this only. I don't think Cabo. I don't think anyone had any plans, but they're a little busy this time of year. I think that's going to be the game that they're probably at their best. And I think if they win that one, not to say the focus gets frayed, but if you're playing for something else, you got things kind of locked up. I think that's when we see sort of not a drop off, but just not as crisp of a performance. And I think Minnesota's a team you can't afford that against.
All right, Viggs, what do you got?
I think we get the Ben Holden special this weekend. I think we see 2 overtime games.
Oh.
And I think Minnesota takes 4 of the 6 points.
Oh.
And we have a tie point-wise for the Big Ten championship. And I did look it up. They have the same number of regulation wins right now.
So then it's regulation losses, I think.
Yeah.
So it's going to make everybody go to the tiebreakers.
I've got that up on GPL. I haven't looked at it recently, but it is up on
chaos. I want to see
it. It is on the Big Ten standings page, so you have to check it out. I've got the notes there of what the tie-breaking procedure is. So, and Vigo, there's always bonuses with that.
Yeah, that's right. Coaches get bonuses. I still haven't gotten my contracts for Adam Nightingale and staff from Michigan State that I put in for about 7 weeks ago. But someday I'll see those.
Vigo loves the freedom of information stuff.
That tracks with the MSU FOIA department. I don't have much better luck.
I was pretty surprised. I got Michigan's, same day everybody else did. They waited to release it to everybody on the same day. That was kind of funny, but
yeah,
they haven't seen Michigan State's yet.
The our higher ed reporter hates that about the U of M FOIA department.
I bet they do.
Hates it. Yeah.
Well, I like your pick, Viggs. That's a little bold. I mean, it would certainly make for an interesting finish for the Big Ten regular season title and get people fired up. So
I would love to see Michigan State pull their goalie on Friday night, trying to have like a 4-on-3 chance or something to win it and get the extra.
Oh, like a regulation or something like that?
Yeah, something crazy.
So it's like tied late in the game?
And they want the regulation win.
Oh, that would be interesting.
It'd be a lot of fun to see.
Oh, you think Nightingale would pull that, Connor?
I don't think he would do that. No way. I don't think.
Okay. He might do it. He might do it on the second game. Friday game, he might do it if they lost game 1 and then they need the 3, and he knows what the tiebreakers are. It's tied. 2 minutes left in the third. He pulls the best goalie in the country to try for the win. That would be fun, Viggs. That would be fun.
Praying for that chaos.
I like it. I like that you're praying for chaos because it just makes college hockey even more fun, man.
Your job harder.
Exactly.
Well, Connor, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's nice to have
Yeah.
you back on.
Absolutely. It's good to be here.
Can you stay on for a bit of overtime here?
Absolutely. Playing for it.
Sweet. And while Viggs is waiting to hear the coaching numbers and everything from Michigan State, you got anything else in the hopper? Nope.
I got a beer on deck for overtime.
Oh, that's what he's got a beer on deck in the hopper. Well, that's pretty fun. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We got a special show coming up on Saturday from the Let's Play Hockey Expo. We're going to have Brian Bonin on in the afternoon, about 4:00 or so. But the regular show will be back on Monday, since it's a Wednesday game next week. We'll be back on Monday for our next full episode. So that will be fun. So for those of you watching right now live, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next time on the GPL podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and get notified each time we go live or post a video. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate our show and leave a review. For those of you watching live, you know what's next. It's Vigo's Beverage of the Week. It's time for overtime.
Back to a dark beer this week. Cleaning out the basement as I prep to finish it at some point. Bourbon County brand stout. This is aged in cherry wood. So 14.2%.
Like a cherry wood barrel type of thing?
Yep. Finished in a cherry wood barrel. So cheers, everyone.
Nice.
Very nice, Figs. Very nice.
2021 Bourbon County stout. Very smooth, very rich. A little hint of cherry to it, but mostly oaky and vanilla. Really good. And the brown sugar, of course.
Got that?
I got a black cherry Zevia.
Oh, I just got water.
Those are
Vig,
really
you got
good,
that,
by the way.
you got that booth set up in Florida yet?
I'm looking for the funding for it. So if Bjorn's going to chip in a plane ticket and a hotel room, I will get down there with my Busch Light pounders and set up. Tell me why I'm wrong about campus sites. So as I look forward to being the assistant czar of college hockey to Fred Pletch.
Fred Pletch.
Who did a very nice job on the broadcast with Ben this last week. So fantastic.
Bjorn, he's got you. He's going to join you, man.
Okay, awesome, Bjorn. Work on that tan a little bit.
Well, don't we all? Gosh.
Yeah. I had to put warm light on my other monitors. It kept going out because otherwise it looked so pale. And then it made me look green. So this is much better.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It is vampire season for hockey players and writers. So yeah, everyone's looking
it's hockey hair season here, Viggs, though.
Yeah.
How have you liked the hair so far?
A little aggressive by some of the players. I'm not a big fan of the colors and the blonde hair stuff. I like traditional flowing hair, just like a little bit out the back of the bucket, some wings coming out the sides. I'm more of that kind of look. So I'm looking forward to the AA games tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to getting my eyes on Moorhead and the youngest Cullen as he makes his mark on high school hockey. That'll be, I'm sure a lot of Minnesota fans will be watching for that one. But a lot of upsets this year in the section tournaments. We had a lot of number one seeds go down. So it should be for an interesting tournament.
Yeah.
I say the expected teams came through today.
We had a between the legs goal today, too. That was a nice goal. In a losing effort for, who was it? Dodge County?
Dodge County. Yeah, Class A, the first day is always kind of tough.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a big discrepancy between the top schools and the.
See, here in Minnesota, we have high school hockey.
They don't have all this AAA factory stuff.
Yeah, we don't have all the money. Well, Edina and's got all the money, but
Well, it's funny because the high schools here, like you see who just gets a stranglehold over it, like DCC for the longest time. That's where Nerado played in high school for, I think, a year or two. Was just a factory. And now Powers Catholic right down the road from me here in Flint is now all of a sudden just a program. And it's had some pretty darn good players. So it's like every couple of years you see someone new is like, we can do this. My high school's team folded my sophomore year. I couldn't hardly skate. I wouldn't have played anyway, but there was like five schools in our conference that banded together, and even then they couldn't field a team.
Well, and that's the same case here in Minnesota, Viggs. I mean, Dodge County, Rock Ridge. I'm like, where are these things again? I don't even know.
Paul is now a single school. It used to be like 9 or 10. Now it's just one. Minneapolis used to be like 5 or 6 schools. Now it's just one. It's a challenging sport because I think, the Minnesota model is definitely try to keep as many kids playing for as long as you can. But you have so many people chasing these elite teams that if they don't make a, they're just like, well, if I can't make that elite team, why would I keep playing? That's part of the mindset of youth sports today. And I think that's the wrong message to send. You look at Connor Hellebuck, a Michigan kid who, played high school hockey there, which is not the direct route to success. And he persevered. He kept playing and he got a spot in juniors and got his way to UMass Lowell. And look at him now. Medal of Freedom winner.
Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense. Yeah.
Timely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So good for Hellebuck. Another Connor.
Yeah. You're the Connor. Always has, man. It's been in my bio for 3 years now.
Question to you about the Michigan Daily Writers.
Yeah.
What kind of budget does that place have to send 5 people to Mariucci in a season?
It's
is it like a big donator who donates?
It's an endowment. So there's money that's cut off of it each year. I don't remember if we spend a little over and then pay it back through donations and stuff. But so through the Ohio State football series, the game, there's always a fundraiser attached to that. That money goes to the program. Giving Blue Day, there's a bunch of people that donate. So they're pretty well provisioned. And some of it is just, it's not luxurious stays. It's, Fairfield Inn with 2 to a bed, someone on the floor. Made it work.
Yeah, they had 4 writers and a photographer at Mariucci this year. And Slarks is like, I can't get seats for all you guys. We don't have the kind of facilities for that many seats. And I'm guessing at Michigan, it's tough to fit anyone there because it's just an old facility to fit people in.
It's sometimes hard, but there's not as many locals that cover it. Like usually for the news, I'm the only one there. That from like the Detroit News Free Press. MLive usually has someone there. Zook does a good job at U of M, but no one from Freep. If I'm not there, no one else is from Detroit News. And usually I don't freelance the games I would want to go to. Usually against MSU or someone like that. But if they play Western and it's not a football weekend, but we haven't run into that yet. But it's there's a good enough budget. We had a horror story when the Minnesota football game in 23 against U of M. We went to a Motel 6 we booked at that looked okay and had good reviews, and then we got there and no. If you guys remember John Tondora, tall, skinny kid with the curly hair, probably not. He that's one of my best friends though. But he turned.
The thing.
Like,
you're the only one would communicate with us.
Yeah.
They really keep to themselves.
Yeah, they don't
want a socialite. They're like, oh, who's the old guy over there? Whereas you're a lot more open than we found from some of the other Michigan people.
Yeah,
maybe that's why Connor's working for the Detroit News as well.
And that's possible.
It's a good quality to have.
It's a professional development thing. I second that. Like people got to get out of their shell a little bit.
And they honestly they say to themselves, you don't really hear much from them. They seem a little snooty. I'm like, well, that's just the impression I get, and that's if it's that impression, that's what I get. But I always felt you were different because you're like you wanted to talk to other people, you wanted to see what was going on, and it's like
I'm nosy.
And now, like you said, you're working for the enemy essentially. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's pretty damn good, isn't it?
It's funny because like growing up, my dad was always a big proponent of like, yeah, you know, you want U of M to go 12-0 and MSU to go at 11-1 because it makes the rivalry that much better. And I was like, Dad, that's psycho. But it is like he was always, you know, stoked for when MSU would win, like Elite Eights and when it'd be Beeline and Izzo and all that. So it's funny. He loved Tom Izzo, even like late career when he was losing, because he's like, he stands on his principles. And so, you know, Izzo will always give me crap as the Michigan guy. It's usually playful banter, just reminding me like, I know where you went to school. But, you know, little does he know, there's no contempt. But it's a great group of people.
Have you gotten to interview the UCLA coach yet? He seems like a real treat.
Which one?
UCLA men's basketball coach.
Oh, Mick Cronin. So no,
yeah.
When he got on Wenzel, so Wenzel's on right. He does hockey as well. He goes down there and he just asks him like, "What do you think of the fans?" You know, because Xavier Booker was an MSU player and left, and it was a mutual decision, and fans still loved him for it. And he's on a Big Ten championship team. He's a good kid too. Wants to go into sports media, so we might see him around. But no, and Cronin just like scoffed at it. But the raising your voice thing was so gross, and now it's become a meme. We all text each other. Are you raising your voice at me? It's great.
Which is the best thing ever to have come out of that. Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, I know Jupe's not a bouncy ball guy, so he might have missed this, but
no, I saw it.
Okay.
I saw
because the Gophers just beat UCLA in men's basketball here this last weekend as well, which I was just like, I was grinning ear to ear on that one.
Yeah. And UCLA beat someone like Illinois or someone, I think, right? Just recently.
Yeah,
like,
they're having a good season for the most part.
Sort of. They're so who is it? I'm trying to remember the basketball team. I think it might be TCU that has like insane wins, like 3 top 10 teams or something, and then they lose to like ASU, you know, like some of these terrible teams. And they're just, I guess ASU just beat Kansas, but they're not.
I just think college athletes, you know, it's a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
And the best teams are able to even things out and not get too high, not get too low, because it's a game of mistakes in college all the time. And you just have to figure out how to deal with it and not let it get too down. And I think that's what happened in Minnesota in their stretch in January, is they just let their mistakes get them too down. And then you had guys get into funks and kind of check out a little bit for a while. And, you know, playing some competitive games the last couple of weeks have raised the spirits a little bit. And I just look at that line of Mooney, Lamb, and Zemer, and it's just like they have so much fun during practice. Like, you've been around practice lately.
Yes.
Like every time they score, they're just like hooting and hollering, and life is good again. And you know, when you see that kind of stuff, it's very contagious.
Yeah, they had a good series at Munn. That line is particularly, but I thought like the process was there. You know, the results weren't, but obviously they snapped the streak after that of losing the next series. But there's still talent on that team. LJ, I love seeing succeed. After all the knocks he's taken as an undersized kid, like since he was in juniors, people were down on him. You know, obviously he's a draft pick now and is probably, you know, gets to laugh at some of the people that were down on him. But I like a lot, especially like, I don't know, the hustle plays. That was the thing I liked about Brindley at U of M was, he's undersized, but he's still going to go, you know, be where he needs to be. And he's not going to be afraid of getting hit and those sorts of aspects. Like, you could be a small player as long as you know you're going to take your licks, and he seems willing to do that. At least the series I saw. I don't know his season context or not, but
yeah, I think he had a little bit of a World Junior hangover to his game. You know, just a little fatigue and checked out a little bit from his usual game, but he's back now, and you know, he had that injury, but he's recovered just fine. I always thought Brindley was one of those players on that Michigan team that just kind of like stirred the drink.
Yeah,
you know, like he wasn't going to let the energy drop, and he was going to do everything he could to make other players around him better. You know, there's some players maybe with a little bit more higher end talent, but they didn't bring like that effort and energy like he did as often. And you need players like that.
Anthony Romani's that guy for MSU this year. He's like, I mean, he had the tying, was it tying goal? Yeah, tying goal against Ohio State on Saturday. You know, not just the humblest kid you'll ever meet. I think he's a 5th round pick from Vancouver, late ad, and it's just been stellar. I mean, he's heavy, you know, heavy I don't want to describe it as heavy. He's just intentional in everything he does. And even if he's going to lose a battle, he's still going to fight. Even if he's going to lose a race, he's still going to run it. I like that side of him. And he's just a dynamic playmaker. Lee is something special. That's a guy that's the highlight reel of misses is better than some guys have, thought of in practice. Like, yeah.
Yeah, Riker Lee is a fun player to watch. I just sometimes I see highlight reel after highlight reel though. You don't see the consistency out of him that I'm sure coaches will like to see. He went through a stretch there where he didn't score any goals. Yeah. But he's got a lot of high-end talent that's fun to watch. I remember seeing him at the summer showcase as like, who is this kid? And I started doing all this reading about him at Shattuck and being the magician and all that. And, we'll see. It helps to play on a good team when you're a player like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you guys stole the summer showcase from us. The rink in Plymouth, they were redoing the floors or something. So there's 2 years now. I think you get it back. This coming year.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun to see like College Hockey Nation descend on Minneapolis for a summer, where you just see all the coaches around and all the agents and scouts. I thought it was a fun experience. I hope it comes back to Minneapolis every once in a while because it's a good spot for it. With Ritter being the right size and having all the locker rooms over at Mariucci and the space over there. And I think the players enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
And we got more of the players. We could just interview everybody. It was very casual, I'd say, Viggs.
Yeah, and that's usually when you get the best interviews with people is when it's a little bit more relaxed.
Less stakes.
Yeah.
Fewer stakes. Less or fewer? I don't know. I should know. I don't. That's what editors are for.
You just got to know what to look up sometimes as a writer, Connor, right?
All I know is that one of those days, I don't know how they kept the rink cold because it was dew point was like 75. It was like 90 degrees out. It was brutal. And somehow they kept the ice okay. It was a little soft, but the new power plant really helped there because it was hot.
I heard it's like the Cadillac of power plants for keeping the rink cold. So when you got guys like Craig Floor behind the scenes, you're gonna have great ice.
Yep. Fantastic Twitter follow. Fantastic. Like seeing the updates.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. I love any construction renovation. Like my Instagram reel feed is just
what is this? Who is this Craig Floor again? It could be Craig Floor.
He's the Mariucci, so
well. Craig Floor does watch a lot. He's in his garage up in Vandus Heights watching us right now. He's got a busy weekend because he's got all those consolation games. So it will be interesting how the ice goes this weekend because there's gonna be games before Viggs.
I don't know the specifics, but I do feel like they play some of those at Ritter now.
It says Mariucci, I think.
Okay.
It's got to be Craig. So. 8 games in 3 days.
Yeah. If it's back in Plymouth, I'm going to be stoked. I love the summer showcase. You get that back, but I'm from what I heard, there was a renovation of sorts that was going on.
Okay.
I've never been. How big's the arena there?
In Plymouth, it's junior hockey size. It's not anything super big. Yeah. But it's where the program plays.
Yeah.
Don't you see all those empty blue seats in the background of all the photos they post of the development kids?
Yeah. Hey, during the game sometimes too.
Yes, during the game.
Some of the games are packed, but some of them it's like, man, guys, like start giving away, not to say give away tickets, but like there's people who go to these. It's just far, it's a tough drive from Detroit because of the traffic. I think people don't want to,
That's why we'll host it here at Ritter again. That would be just fine.
Yeah,
and they couldn't. The
program doesn't sell quarter beers during their games either, like some of the other junior teams might do. I remember I went to a game to go see Kyle Okposo play for Des Moines, and when the Bucks scored, it was like quarter beers for 5 minutes. So the Bucks would score, and everyone would get excited and cheer, and then everybody would run out into the concourse to get a beer or two, and then come back. And it'd be madness, like if they score a couple in a row, just people running back and forth to try to get
quarter beers. Bigs. Wow.
I mean, this is like 20
insane.
years ago, 25 years ago.
Still, that's
Yeah.
Remember Nick Angel selling quarter beers at grandma's, trying to make a little extra cash as a college hockey player?
or was it before? Well, it was during the off season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was off season. It was summers at
Nicky Angel.
Sergeant Preston's and
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
down there.
Holidays.
I was just down there Monday night in downtown Duluth and or downtown Canal Park there, and you walk by the Good Sports Garden and it's just not the same Vigs. We went to like Pub 312 or something like that. That's down across from the Suites Hotel. It was dead when we got there, but it slowly filled up. Monday night, I was saying, not a big deal. I'm like, even when we were here with Minnesota Duluth the previous season, Canal Park is just not the same as what it used to be. And the lady says, yeah, business is down a lot in the last couple of years in Canal Park. And she thinks that they've kind of priced themselves out with how expensive the hotels have become and how expensive everything has become, which is unfortunate because, as you know, that used to be one of our favorite trips was going to Duluth.
Connor, you got some favorite trips for college hockey that you've been on, with the daily or
Anytime I get to Lawson, I was there on Friday for the game against North Dakota. Just that is, and it's going to be a shame that they're building a new arena because it's not going to be the same. Like they're trying. Dan Bartholomew, the AD, is a fantastic AD, rising star. Like he's going to run one heck of an athletic department when he gets the money that Western can't match. But the new arena, they've brought in fans, they've brought in, different studies to sort of get the same sort of atmosphere, low ceiling, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be the same. I mean, it's a college hockey barn. There's the only way you can describe it. And having such a large contingent of students as the fans, right? It's not the biggest venue, but it is loud. And they were going at it on Friday, and I'm sure Saturday too with an OT winner. But yeah, that's number one. And then Penn State was fun.
I've heard.
It's a nice, the wall they have at the student section. Noah West played net because Portillo was one of the first people when that adenovirus outbreak happened at U of M, with Holtz and the near tragedy there. So that was part of the early symptoms. And so Portillo couldn't play, and West goes in and he's played at Robert Morris, so it's kind of cool, right? It's semi-local. And he just gets shelled the first night. And they're on him, and you can see we got a great photo from our photographer of the lights on him and all the fans pointing, and he's just looking down. He's the nicest. His brother's at MSU, but he's the nicest guy ever. And he's just like, oh, man. And, Michigan fresh with the #1 ranking, so everyone's like, overrated. And he's thinking like I'm the backup goalie.
Oh, that's what I love about college hockey leagues, right there. An overrated chance. F this school. I mean,
I'm really waiting for a college building to have like a safe stand end, like at the Wonderwall for Minnesota United. Like it's a 8-degree slope
because they're
seats, so it's just like a wall of fans right behind the goal. And I'm just waiting for a college building to have something like that for their students. So they're just like essentially just right on top of the basket or the net or an end. And I just think it'd be a really fun atmosphere to have that kind of building somewhere in college sports. So,
and that's where Mariucci's hurt because the students are not on the glass. There's this huge gap between the students and the glass, which I think kind of stinks. Because, like we said, that Big Ten championship against Michigan just a couple of years ago, they had 5 sections of students going straight up, 3,000 of them in there. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think it's critical. Like Western Michigan's, like you have something special in your current building. Try not to lose it when you go to your next building. It's such a critical decision. There's the desire, I think, probably to have like a club section and suites and have money-making opportunities. But if you lose your DNA, it takes away from the experience. Part of that Big Ten championship that was so fun was all the students. I think it makes all those suites more attractive when you can look down and see all those students there getting at it. So,
yeah,
I like the idea of a standing section on because they stand anyway.
yeah.
The entire students stand the entire game. The only time they sit down is in between periods.
Yeah. One of my thoughts of,
oh, good.
like if they like renovated Williams Arena, do like a safe stand section and then put like a bar behind it, like a special access or something lounge area. Because then it creates all that space behind it, and you bring the fans so much closer.
Mhm.
It would make the venue a little bit more attractive.
Yeah. Mackey Arena, Purdue, might be a good. That's one that gets the seats right because it's just bleacher seats, so students are kind of right on top of you, and it's a low ceiling. Like that's obviously college basketball cathedral, but that's one that I think gets it right with the sound, and it's imposing. Like you feel it in the chest, and my ears were ringing in press conferences afterward. That was Thursday, and it was, the venue is probably worth 5-6 points in a game. Like, and you think, college hockey, if you're pressuring and it's loud and, you can rattle guys like that, like Noah West at Penn State. He's such a good dude too. He does like dirt track racing now. And he did that, going into his senior year, he was like not a crew chief, but sort of like the head of the operation, and it just makes sense to him. But they were like number one, and then he left, and they just started losing because he was the secret sauce because he had to go back to Ann Arbor. But I think he's still doing it now. But his dad's like all sorts of injection molding, plastics, big guru in that. That's how they got to pay for hockey in Indiana. But really, really good family.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about Yost? It's
I wanna punch
it's
the
100
clock.
years old.
It's seen better days. It's not run down or anything like that, but it's just like you're there, and I don't know. It looks pretty on the outside, and you get in, and it's like, what's here? What are the amenities? And there's only so much with younger players that you can get away with this is historic.
Yeah.
Some guys are into that, right? Not the superstars all the time. But usually they've been successful. Like they get a group of buddies to go, and it's like, I'm gonna go play with my boys. We're going to U of M, football, bars, all the cool stuff, right? But I think if they had a better venue, I think it would probably sell a little easier, especially with like the recovery amenities. You think in North Dakota and what they've got out there, it's straight out of
They have
NASCAR.
a hyperbaric chamber up
Yeah,
there.
like maybe you don't go that far. But maybe have a
But
physical
like Munn has all these like recovery facilities now and stuff too, right?
a little bit,
Like,
yeah.
Not quite like North Dakota, but
Yeah.
still pretty good. Like I've
It's
seen like the
solid.
recovery tubs and things like that.
Yeah, and they have like a bunch of player lounges and common areas and stuff. That's where they watch the gold medal game. They made Martone wear a Team USA jersey, which is brutal. Brutal. But it's they got ping pong there all the time. Riker Lee might be the worst ping pong player ever. Unless they're like flubbing the numbers on that board, I've never seen him beat anybody. Which is
The
crazy.
magician only applies with a hockey stick, not a
He's got
paddle.
the craziest hand eye, and then it's just someone's gonna teach him how to hold a paddle better, and it's gonna be like Forrest Gump. He's just looking at it like, yeah, he's a great goofy dude, but great dude. Nashville got a good one with him. Very determined. So
Fun
Yeah, we've
hockey
heard-
weekend, Vigs.
Yeah, we've heard
You-
the Middlestats play a lot of ping pong around here. But yeah, big hockey weekend here.
Big- You're going to state tournament tomorrow. The AA schools playing. We got the Gophers tomorrow with Michigan State. Same thing on Friday. You and I are going to the Let's Play Hockey Expo on Saturday to the Pull Tab Sports booth, and we're gonna have Brian Bonnet on with us.
Yeah, that's exciting. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to Brian Bonham much. I remember when I was a young, like middle schooler, I think I had a fan who sat behind me at Mary G Arena, and every time Bonham would like circle the zone, It was like one of his famous moves. He just circled the zone, offensive zone with the puck. Everyone would like be in the middle. He'd be looking for his opportunity. And this old lady would be like, "Shoot, Brian! Shoot the puck! Shoot the puck, Brian!" It's just like ingrained in me. This old lady is just like, I'm sure he could hear her. You know, we were right over the glass, so I'm sure it was on the ice. But I'll have to ask him that on Saturday if he ever heard that.
Boy,
So yeah,
that.
that's gonna be fun though. Well, I've never been down to the expo. Have you ever done the expo before, Biggs?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've done the expo quite a bit. So I'm actually going to the games Saturday night. So it'll be convenient for me.
That'll work for you really well.
Yeah. I hope we're seeing Moorhead play for that title again.
Okay, who are your picks though? You got Moorhead in the championship game against who?
I think Minnetonka. I think they're on opposite ends of the bracket. That would be the chalk, I think. So
Okay.
So we'll see. Two talented teams. I think Moorhead's got a little bit more higher end talent, but Minnetonka has so much depth. You know, Sean.
And this is the youngest Cullen on the team, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because the other ones,
he's likely program bound next year to play for the U17s.
Okay. And we think we're going to see one of them here next year.
At least one, maybe two.
Which one? Brooks
and Wyatt. I think
Brooks
Wyatt will
and
be a
Wyatt.
first round pick in the draft this year. He's grown like 6 inches in the last 18 months. And
that's got to be quite the adjustment for a kid.
He's still scoring tons of goals. So he's probably one of the most talented players on the U17s right now. So I think he's gotten some U18 games too. So he's a player.
Wow. So what's the NIL situation? Have you heard what players are getting? You know, it's been the same thing here. And, you know, we heard all the McKenna owes $700,000, but do we really know what he got? But instead of some parents telling some agent something,
Yeah.
have you heard anything in
So-
Michigan State?
The arsenal's not as complete as some of the other schools. So football even doesn't have all the things they want. That was a point of contention with Jonathan Smith as head coach. It's like, yeah, he didn't win. What was he winning with? And that was sort of the defense of him as a coach, and he sort of got the short end of the stick. But, you know, hoops has a decent amount, but that seems to have gone up since Izzo proved he could win with scraps. You know, no disrespect, I know on the roster, but it's like Carson Cooper had 0 stars and maybe 3 offers, and he turned him into, you know, a Big Ten starter. Like he put the work in, and some of them are like legacy commits and things like that. But for the hockey side of things, I haven't heard what guys are particularly making. I gotta imagine Martone's making something, but that's just speculation. I can't confirm. It's one of those topics guys just don't talk about. And
Hockey's weird that way.
It's not well publicized of like who's got what amount of money. I think it helps too, like demographically, a lot of hockey players' families are doing all right. Whereas, you know, you see a lot dumber decisions with wealth in a football or a men's basketball. Nick Marsh had a number of cars, the wide receiver, a number of cars, and a lot of them had parking tickets because he parked at the facility and he'd pull in. And it's like, oh, they popped him again. Pretty sure he had the money to pay him off, and he's a great kid. But it's like, dude, you can't park there. Can't do that.
But Biggs, that's been the biggest question, though.
Yeah.
What is the real dollar amount? Is it just parents and agents putting these figures out there?
Well, I think we've heard a couple of the players at Minnesota have gotten close to 6 figures for some of their deals to come back or stay or transfer, but it's just not widespread. There's nobody making like more than $250,000 for a lot of these schools. You're seeing some kids get full room and board tuition made up for with NIL money to, you know, make it so they're not paying anything for school. But it's coming. We've seen Dickeytown athletes promoting some events for men's hockey specifically. I think they're going to need some money here in this off season as Moscow tries to plug some holes here. You know, they've got a really good recruiting class coming in 2 years. Next year's class, there's some talent there. There's probably going to be some young players like Cullen and Harper who are going to have to come in maybe a little bit earlier than you'd like, but they're going to be looking at transfer portal guys, and they're going to get offers from elsewhere. So it doesn't need to be the best offer. I think is like Michigan State and Penn State and BU and BC have proven. It doesn't need to be top dollar, but a little something helps push you over the top, I think. And they might need some money to make sure a player doesn't leave early as well.
That's going to be the interesting.
That was with Snuggerud. Like, I think he wanted to come back, but I think the money helped.
Every kid has a plan until the money's in front of them.
Well, until a team says, "Hey, why don't you sign? You'll play in the NHL tomorrow night."
Yeah,
right. That's very attractive to a player.
Yeah,
they're like, "Yeah, we got a jersey lined up. We got a spot in the roster for you. If you sign, we'll fly you to Madison Square Garden. You can make your debut."
That's what got
pretty
Michigan
attractive deal.
LaFontaine. We need a goalie right now. Gone right in the middle of the season, Viggs.
Yeah, that bridge is burned with Laffer. Such a good kid too.
Oh yeah,
and it didn't work out.
Did not work out at all.
Yeah,
and his team went to the national championship game with the Gophers on a essentially third stringer because we know that Mo left when he heard that LaFontaine was coming back, so he went to Wisconsin. And that's where you get Justin Close.
Great story. Could have been different if Laffer was there. So
I still like the kid though. How emotional he got on that Zoom call after winning at Michigan because of COVID. Everyone was doing post-game Zoom, and he was genuinely just overwhelmed. Viggs,
and we never would have got that in a scrum. Because he's all by himself at an arena he'd spent so much time at.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just tell he's a very heady individual.
Mm-hmm.
He had the Jack LaFontaine book club with Wally and Frank that we didn't get to finish. But emotional moment. I'll never forget that one.
That was a cool moment. All right, it is way late for Connor. You need to it's way past your bedtime, young man.
Get out and play video games. The game tomorrow is 8 p.m. I'm sleeping in.
Young kid, Jupe. Young kid, Jupe.
This is what's going to conjure like some crazy, like someone's getting fired that I'm going to sleep through. Well, that's a problem for the morning if it happens. I'm going to hang out and chill. And I don't have many of these nights left because it's March Madness. But yeah, this is great. Anytime.
We got the good story from Brad Schlossman, how he got caught once with an announcement that he had spent too late of a night out the night before and missed it. And they called him with the scoop and everything, and he missed it.
Oh.
And so when we went to the regional last year and they're trying to hire a new coach at North Dakota, he's like, "Guys, can't go out. I got to be by my phone all weekend here. I got to get all my stories prepped. It could be any day that they're going to make this hire, and I need to be the one to break it." So
he was there for Thursday games, but he left right after that. I don't think he was there after that, was he? I don't think
he had to be a professional and stay on top of his beat. So
yeah, you could tell that the UND staff was a little overwhelmed last year running that regional, Connor. It was just they're like, we have to do all this, yet I've got to worry about hiring a coach. And
all the interviews and the media stuff that they're trying to hide, and it was something.
I love Dane. He's so cool to talk to, just personable. You saw him at Friday in the locker room afterward and just won a championship. And just, I don't know, the depth of the answers, like looks you in the eye, firm handshake, like all that kind of stuff. He checks every box.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's good to meet other coaches.
Yeah.
And it's cool to get their perspective. We get to see a lot of them, Viggs. Even the showcase this year.
Yeah.
And you see them at the regionals and things like that. And like showcase, we come walking out of Ritter and look, there's Mike Hastings. Hey guys, how you doing?
Like I say, the only good thing about the regionals is you get to see more people. in the college hockey world, but I still think it'd be better for the game to have the campus sites. So,
You
We
get
know
people at the sites. People would travel for that, you know. Maybe not as much, but if it's a big matchup, you get
people will be there. Yep.
People will be there. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a night. Connor, stay online for a second here. We're going to say goodbye to everyone else. Hopefully, we'll catch you guys on Saturday and next Monday. But good night, everybody. You don't have anything, Biggs? Nothing? Just nothing.
I didn't get any good phone calls this week to share.